Township Planning Board regular meeting for Tuesday, November 21st, 2023. Adequate notice of this meeting has been given in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-6. Proper notice was sent to the official newspapers of record, filed with the clerk of the Township of Bridgewater, and posted on the municipal bulletin board in the municipal building and municipal website on January 13th, 2023. Please be aware of the Planning Board policy for public hearings. No new applications will be heard after 9:30 p.m., and no new testimony will be taken after 10 p.m. Hearing assistance is available upon request. Accommodations will be made for individuals with a disability pursuant to the Americans with Disabilities Act, or ADA, provided the individual with the disability provides 48 hours advance notice to the Planning Department before the public meeting. However, if the individual should require special equipment or services such as a CART transcriber, 7 days advance notice, excluding weekends and holidays, may be necessary. Would everyone please rise to salute the flag?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Probst, could I have a roll call, please? Here.
Good evening here.
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 Thank you, Ms. Probst. Very good. At this time, I'd like to open the meeting to any members of the public that wish to address the board on any item not listed on the agenda this evening. Please feel forward to come at this time. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Robert Albano. I live at 1149 Papin Road, Bridgewater, New Jersey. And I'm here with my grandson, who is attending this meeting as part of a course at Rutgers University in how public government works and how it is reported in the press. But I also want to take a moment, having sat in one of those seats for many years, I want to thank you all for your service to the community. Most people do not know how much work is involved unless they've actually done it, and I have done it. And also I want to congratulate and compliment a former member of the Martinsville Rescue Squad and a current member of the Greeno Rescue Squad for their service. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Albano. Moving along, we do have a set of board minutes this evening for approval. They're for October 17th, 2023. Does the board have any comments or questions or any changes for the record? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to approve the minutes for October 17th, 2023.
I'll motion.
Go ahead.
That's Ms. Chartowitz. Second?
Second.
Councilman Ring. Could I have a roll call, please? Yes.
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 Okay, moving along, we do have one resolution this evening up for adoption. That's for the Target Corporation. It's a reconfigured of a standard parking stalls, drive-up stalls. The members of the board should have received this electronically. Has everybody had a chance? I do believe you have a paper copy here this evening in front of us as well. Any questions or comments regarding the resolution? Any changes for the record?
I'll move it.
It's a motion by Councilman Ring. I'll need a second.
I second.
That's Mr. Wang. Could I have a roll call, please? Yes.
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 Thank you, Ms. Probst. Moving along to our application portion for the evening. We do have one application this evening. That's for Solaris Corporation. I believe that's 95 Corporate Drive. And who will be representing the applicant this evening?
Good evening. I was told to speak into the mic. Can everyone hear me okay? Yep. Okay, good evening. I'm Kate Coffey from Day Pitney. I'll be representing the applicant this evening. The applicant is Solaris Corporation. We are seeking preliminary and final major site plan approval as well as a bulk variance. The property, as the chairman indicated, is located at 95 Corporate Drive, which is block 485, lot 3 in Bridgewater. The facility it's an existing building today. It's approximately 119,363 square feet. It's currently leased and occupied by the applicant, and it's being used for offices, laboratories, and storage of materials and product that's manufactured by the applicant on the site. We are located in the Special Economic Development Zone, which is the SED zone. The facility prior to Solaris's occupancy of it was occupied by Allergan, which is another life science company, which also used the property for the development of life science products, particularly cell therapy drugs. We had correspondence previously with the zoning officer related to the current use of the property, and it was determined that it falls within research and development, including scientific investigation and laboratory uses, which is permitted in the SED zone, and we are continuing to use the facility for that purpose. You're going to hear testimony tonight that the improvements that you've seen on our plans are being proposed to be installed in 2 phases. The first phase is going to include removing 2 existing landscape islands and repaving those areas, constructing concrete pads for tank storage along with a drive access point, installing an access gate and fence to that tank storage area, and removing a concrete patio and replacing it with sidewalk. And then in phase 2, there's going to be a relocation of a dumpster with a new trash enclosure, construction of 2 new loading berths on the northern portion of the existing building, and construction of a concrete pad for an emergency generator and transformer. We do have some relief that we're seeking this evening. We need a bulk variance from Ordinance Section 126-177B, which was related to the proposed size of the loading bays. Your requirement is for a dimension of 12 by 50, and the applicant is proposing 12.5 by 36 feet, which is consistent with the size of the bays that exist today. We're seeking a waiver. Well, we had sought a waiver from Ordinance Section 126-278.10.b, which was related to your tree replacement requirements. However, there was a comment in the review memoranda from your professionals suggesting that the applicant seek to try to comply with that standard, and you'll be hearing testimony this evening, but we are happy to work with your professionals to find locations to plant the additional trees to comply, or we'll make a payment in lieu of that if we can't find appropriate locations. So we don't need that waiver anymore. We also have an existing non-conforming condition, which is unchanged. The requirement for a minimum building setback is 200 feet, and we are proposing 173.9 feet, which is the existing condition on the property today, so no change. And finally, we have a slight increase in an existing deviation with respect to your steep slope requirements. Under your ordinance, disturbance of 60% of the site is permitted based on the slopes that exist on the property. Currently, the disturbance is 68.35%, and we are increasing that to 68.9%, so it's an increase of about 0.5%, which is related to the additional impervious coverage that's being proposed. This evening, I have with me Aaron Oswald, who is the Director of Engineering and Facilities at Solaris. He's going to tell you about Solaris's use of the facility, as well as how the proposed improvements will fit into that use. I have John Cote from Langen, who's the project engineer. He's going to give you an overview of the property, its orientation to the surrounding area, and lead you through the proposed improvements. I have Eric Jostin from Ewing Cole. He specializes in the design of life science buildings, and he's going to walk you through the floor plan and the architectural features of the project. And finally, I have Matthew Welch from Langen, who's the project planner, and he's going to talk about the relief that I briefly reviewed with you this evening. If it's acceptable, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask Aaron Oswald to be, he's already, I was going to ask him to join me, but I see he's already here. So I'd ask that he please be sworn.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Coffey, for the intro.
Does he have a microphone? So not only are you speaking in the room, we're broadcasting live, so that's why the microphones are important.
Could you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're going to give in connection with this hearing will be the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Could you state and spell your name for the record?
Yep, Aaron Oswald, Aaron, last name Oswald, Oswald.
Thank you.
Mr. Oswald, could you please introduce yourself to the board and the public and tell them about your position with Solaris?
So my position with Solaris is I'm Director of Engineering Facilities. Right now, we are looking to build out a manufacturing platform for cell therapy products.
Can you tell us a little bit about what Solaris does? What does it make?
So Solaris has developed an automation platform to support the cell therapy manufacturing process. It's a very new platform. They're the first first company that's actually took the traditional manufacturing process for cell therapy products and now completely automated that manufacturing process. And what we'd like to do in Bridgewater is basically start our IDMO, which is Integrated Development Manufacturing Organization, for the cell therapy products.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about what I'm going to call the product flow that you anticipate at the facility. So in other words, what's coming into the facility, what do you do with it, and where does it go when you're done?
Okay, can I point it to an exhibit?
Yes. You can go to an exhibit, but we just need to mark it. So flip to your exhibit, and then we'll mark it, and then we'll talk. Oh, we have to change our input. Okay, we're cool. We're good.
Suzanne, we have it on ours, but not on the big monitors. There we go.
Okay, so before we start talking about what we're looking at, let's just get it marked. So A1, is that okay for everybody? Okay, and then can you tell us the title of the document that you have up on the screen, please?
This is drawing number A2.1.0, level 1 overall floor plan.
And it was prepared by Ewing Cole, correct?
That's correct.
Which is we'll have a representative from them later, but they designed the interior space. And is there a date on the plan?
8.
Yeah, 12/12/2022.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so the question that I'd asked you, which got us into Exhibit A1, Mr. Oswald, was to please explain the product flow at the facility, meaning what do you have coming into the facility, what do you do with it, and then where does it go?
So the cell therapy process using a traditional manufacturing process would have, ISO 7 clean rooms. So what Solaris has done, we've created a cell therapy cell shuttle, which is in column D. This is a manufacturing platform that we have automated, so it's 3 cell shuttles. So what we typically would do, we would receive patient material, so it's patients that are being treated with cancer. They would basically, a courier would drop off what we call a cryo shipper, and it would come in through our receiving area. Receiving area would consist of some warehouse employees that would receive the material. QC would then do a quality check of that material. It will then be held in a long-term storage freezer until it's ready for the manufacturing process. So that's all done in this yellow, sorry, just moved it. That's all done in this yellow area. From the yellow area, we would then take the product or the patient material, and that would go into our media prep area. That's where we then thaw the material. Then it will go from the thawing process, which is traditional apheresis bag. Then it will go to our specially designed cell cartridge. That cell cartridge would then go into the cell shuttle. Then that patient material will then go through the T-cell or basically manufacturing process, which lasts anywhere between 7 to 14 days. And then after the 14th day, that material will then be a cancer-fighting drug. And then that drug will then come back out. It will then be frozen. We'd wait for all our quality checkpoints to be completed. Once that product's been proved acceptable, it will then be shipped back to that patient, where then that patient will be given his treatment.
And when you say it's shipped back to the patient, it's not like showing up on their doorstep, correct?
No, it's shipped back to a clinic by a doctor, and the doctor will then go through the process.
Thank you. And just, I know there were some questions in the review memoranda that we received, so I want to be clear. You're not receiving any products from third parties or sending out any third-party products other than the product you just described, which Solaris is making, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Can you tell us about the operation hours on site and how many employees you expect to have for the shifts?
Yep, so we're gonna run a 2-shift operation. We will eventually get to 2 shifts, but in the beginning it'll be a first shift, but going to a second shift. But then also we have 24/7 coverage for like maintenance personnel. Once we have these cell therapy products in-house, we wanna make sure that they're always protected. So there'll always be some kind of staff there maintaining the operations and watching the products.
So what do you think the maximum number of employees at like your big shift would be?
So the total number of employees that we're looking at after we completely build out this facility will be 350 employees.
And that's during one shift, or that's all the shifts?
That'll be all the shifts. One shift, we're looking between anywhere a max of 175 to 200.
Okay. And so the shifts would each be, so you're expecting 2 at sort of max operation. You're expecting 2 8-hour shifts, each with a maximum of 170 employees, is that right?
That's about right, yeah.
And then what would be like the kind of third shift would not be the full 175 employees, but kind of just maintenance and
It'll
security?
be a lighter staff, correct. Yeah, we'd have, that's where we do our cleaning. So the areas that we are have to be very, very clean. It's clean room areas, so we do our cleaning and just oversee some maintenance and making sure that everything is protected.
Okay. And then another question was about whether we had refrigerated storage, and I just want to, I know you mentioned that there is a process where the product is frozen before it can be shipped out to the clinics. It's not refrigerated storage like you would have in a refrigerated warehouse. Can you just talk about what the cold room process is like?
That's correct. So once we have the cells and we're starting the manufacturing process, we need to feed the cells. So we have media. That media needs to be in cold storage, basically 2 to 8 degrees, so we continuously feed the cells so they can grow and expand. So we use the cold storage rooms to basically hold the media. It goes from the cold rooms to the cell shuttle, and that's basically just replenishing media to kind of keep the cells promoting growth.
So one of the questions that we had in the review memoranda was which kind of warehouse are we? And I want to just go through the types because I'm not sure that we really fit into any of the categories. So the types of warehouse come from the New Jersey Planning Commission's memorandum on warehousing. And again, there's really only a small storage component here that's limited to the product that you are making. So of the types of warehouses that are identified in the New Jersey Planning Commission memorandum, the first type is a break bulk facility, which is defined as a distribution center that receives products in large quantities and does not require individual packaging. And then the distribution is typically transferred by pallet, and shipment is to retail business and to fulfillment centers. But in this case, you're not receiving products by pallet and then repackaging them to go out to various retail type establishments, correct?
That's correct. We actually get the pallets and we break them down, and then we basically for storage.
Got it. And then you use what your intake is what you use to make your product that then you're sending to the clinics. And then the next type is a fulfillment center, which is one that is receiving materials and then packing them for individual destination delivery, and it typically sends products to a last mile facility, and you're not involved in that kind of breaking down and making individual packages to send out to people.
That's correct. Sorry.
And then the last type is a last mile fulfillment center, which is a smaller distribution fulfillment facility that's creating the packages that show up on somebody's doorstep, like your Amazons, and you're not doing that either, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to take the time to go through that because I know there's a lot of warehouse talk these days. So Let's see. I wanted to talk, there are storage tanks that are being proposed at the exterior of the building. Can you tell us what you intend to store in those tanks and how that works into your process?
So we're proposing 2 storage tanks. These are bulk tanks provided by a bulk car carrier, like, for example, Airgas. So one of the tanks will be for liquid nitrogen. That liquid nitrogen helps us freeze our products and keep it in cryogenic state, which preserves the product so we can send it back safely to the patient, where then it gets thawed and delivered to the patient. Same thing for the incoming. The incoming, these products are cryogenically preserved, so we would take them from their liquid dewars and then put them into the storage. We also use it for control, what we call control rate freezing. So to keep the cell's viability, we have to step down the control rate freezing, basically for the cells to help keep that viable cells as high as we can. And then for CO2, we have a second CO2 tank that's looking to put out there. That is for expansion of the cells. That helps and promotes cell growth.
And for those of us who majored in history, like me, can you just go over a little bit about the gases that are going to be stored in terms of, are they inert, are they flammable, safety considerations, et cetera?
Yep, liquid nitrogen and also carbon dioxide are inert gases, atmospheric gases that we use in our process.
Flammable?
No.
Thank you. And can you tell me about any safety measures that are associated with the tanks?
So for the tanks, we have a 6-foot perimeter fencing around the tank so no one can just gain access to it. The fencing will be locked, as well as the security cameras that will be placed on that yard. Also, inside the building, we have safety monitors and life safety devices in there to protect the people as well.
Thank you. I mentioned when I was introducing the application that there's going to be phasing as part of what we're proposing. Can you talk a little bit about the thinking behind the 2 phases?
Yes, so basically for phase 1, we have 3 cell shuttles that are being developed in phase 1 for interior fit out. So really, we don't need to have all this work being performed to support our phase 1. So ideally, that after phase 1, we can get a potential client that we can future build out into our phase 2, which is also being shown in another exhibit that's showing the entire plant being fit out. So today we're here to show phase 1 and phase 2.
Right, and our engineer will review the exact components of what's in phase 1 and phase 2, so that's coming. Thank you, Mr. Oswald. I appreciate you walking us through the use of your current and anticipated use of the facility. I want to pause here to see if anyone has questions for you before we get into our engineering testimony, if that's acceptable to you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, please. Thank you, Mr. Oswald. Does the board have any questions regarding the testimony that was just heard?
I do, if nobody else does.
Sure.
So, walking through the process, once the finished product comes out and goes into freezing and goes through all of its quality checks, once everything is done and like it's good to go, how long on average do you hold that product?
Once QC checks are completed and that product is good to go, we send it to the clinic right away.
Like the same day?
The next day, same day, yeah. We try to manage that really quickly because that patient is dying.
Yeah,
So we,
understood. I guess where I'm going, the reason I ask this, I don't know about others. I know there's some discussion about accessory warehouse here, but from what I've heard, I'm trying to figure out what you're warehousing. You're bringing in really, to me, it sounds almost more manufacturing than warehouse. You're bringing in products, you're treating them and sending them right back out. You're not really storing stuff in a warehouse waiting for someone to order it next week.
So, Mr. Ring, we tend to agree with you. But we felt like we would rather go with a worst case
Understood.
solution and then have people be relieved than come in and say, oh, no, we're just storing our product, and have people say, why didn't you tell us? But we tend to agree. We try to stay within the language of what's in your ordinance.
Understood.
But
I appreciate that.
Compared to what's in like the Planning Commission memo, we really don't think that we match up to any of those warehousing uses because it's truly limited to bringing in the material that's necessary to create the therapy that they're making and then sending out that therapy as soon as it's ready to be safely used.
And I don't know if that's something we decide or the zoning officer decides how that.
Interpretation of the zoning ordinance is the province of the zoning board.
Okay.
but you can make your own informed decision on this.
Yeah.
When considering the variance relief, which is really why they're here, you can take all that into consideration.
What I would say is, I think either way, the use is permitted in the zone, is my understanding. So whether you consider it to just be sort of office and lab and manufacturing, that's permitted. And the zoning also permits an accessory warehouse use to those uses. So whether we want to call it warehousing, which we did to be safe out of an abundance of caution, or whether you want to consider it storage that's associated with the manufacturing process, I think either way, we're covered from a permitted use perspective.
I appreciate that, thank you. And then, I don't know if this will be for you or for someone further down the line. You were talking about fencing outside around the tanks. Is that, there's obviously not a lot of homes immediately around there. There are some across the street, residential. I guess screening, is that going to be fencing that's going to screen the tanks, or wait on that?
Let's save it
That's
for the
fine.
engineer,
Yep.
because he's going to have some images for you, and I
Okay,
think you'll have
perfect.
a sense of what's visible and what's being proposed.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Councilman. Mr. Oswald, I apologize if you went over this. In its current production state, what is being processed at the moment at that facility?
At the moment, we're just doing interior fit out for construction.
Okay. And the expected, if you could, just humor us, on an average day or an average week, what does the expected delivery look like for the distribution center?
So with the 3 cell shuttles right now, we could potentially make 9 products a day. So 9 patients we could serve every day. So that would be, 2 or 3 deliveries. Depends. Like for example, use a company like Cryoport. So that might be 3 to 4 deliveries.
Mr. Oswald, can you just tell them how these deliveries are coming in terms of what kind of a vehicle, et cetera?
They're typically similar to like a box truck or like a UPS kind of truck. They're not really your large 53 footers and things like that.
So a U40 was used as an example. Fit 12 by, I think 12 and a half by 36 is what was being requested?
Yeah, that would be consistent.
Okay. Thank you. The liquid nitrogen, you'll have power generation on site, correct?
Yes, there's existing power generator on site.
There's
For our future use, we would also need a second one.
Okay. And where is the fuel being stored for the
It's
power?
underbelly tank.
Underbelly, okay. And if you could, and this might apply more later on down the road here, but as far as the roof is concerned, what is stored on the roof? What type of maintenance do we see on the roof taking place?
So on the roof currently, we have our RTUs, our air handling equipment that's on the roof, and exhaust fans.
Okay. Is there any future plan for the use of solar on the roof?
Not at the moment, but that's something that we always looked at doing because Stellaris is a California-based company, so we're pretty green.
Okay.
Yeah, that would probably be for a future application.
Okay. And lastly, you mentioned that there were safety monitors that were monitoring that fenced area, for example. Does that include camera surveillance? Is there security staff on site throughout the evening?
Yes, we have camera surveillance, and then inside the building, we have life safety devices.
Okay. Those are all the questions I have for now. Thank you. Are there any questions by the board?
Mr. Chairman,
Wang.
if I could. I see there are 2 existing loading docks there, right? Okay. So what the relationship with those, the yellow part, which is the existing loading dock, and the new loading dock? Why there are more loading docks needed?
The 2 that are there existing are very small. They're 8 by 8 as far as the opening. They've been there for a very, very long time. One thing that we were thinking about is we have that second bay. We can keep basically waste material kind of going one flow, incoming product another flow. So it really separates the flow, and we don't have to worry about cross-contamination.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wang. Any other questions from our board?
I just have one question. So I know, Stellaris is a fairly new startup-ish company. Just finished their Series C. I guess the intent for the storage long-term, is it, as Stellaris gets more potential like partners, clients, is the storage potentially going to be utilized in a way that could be warehousing in your expert opinion, or is it still going to be in and out?
Yeah, this facility basically designed for this phase and the next phase. This is the biggest of the warehouse where we're actually putting together. And it's really just for storage of our materials to help support our manufacturing process. Any other further warehousing where we have to keep supply will be like a 3PO kind of facility where we have it, stored somewhere else, and it comes in to kind of maintain our manufacturing process. So this is the furthest build out of any kind of warehousing or supply storage that we need.
And I would just add that because of the nature of the product, as soon as it's ready, it's sent out because the folks who are waiting on it need it to live. So it's not, and they're unique to the patient who's going to be using it. So it's not like you could stock up on it and then when someone calls up, go send it out because it's unique to each patient. So it really wouldn't be practical to have any kind of long-term storage of product.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Banga. I'd like to hear from some of our professionals.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman, and it's strictly for clarification. You indicated that you will be, if I understood you correctly, that you will be getting material from cancer patients and bringing their physical material in for processing, and then from that processing, once that's done, you'll be shipping it out in a form that would be for treatment. Is that correct?
That's correct.
What's confusing to me is the mass. You say it comes in a box truck?
So it's basically one patient comes in what they call a doer. That doer is sized probably by 3 foot by 3 foot in size, and it's usually one patient per doer.
One patient's material.
Material. When I say material, just think about when you donate blood.
Yeah.
You donate blood in those small bags, like 250 ml bags. So 3 of those bags, we try to get 3 of those bags are shipped in one doer.
I see. Okay, so you have X number of, how many doers do you have in a box truck? I mean, the doers are
So-
only what, 4 by 4, 3 by 3?
Yeah, so that's one patient. So if we do 9 patients a day, we would get 9.
I'm going to try to help. The truck is not full of doers. The doers are being shipped on an individual basis, so you might only get one doer delivered at a time.
Correct, but we're using the same courier, so we can potentially get 3 to 4 patients per.
Okay,
Hopefully that,
I understand it.
Yeah.
It's not a big truck for a small amount.
It's not a big truck, yeah. It's not, I mean, it's,
Well, compared to the doer.
yeah, correct, that's correct.
But they're carrying other stuff besides your doors.
correct.
Yeah.
Got it. Thank you, sir.
It's not your own truck you own, it's a third-party vendor.
Correct.
Thank you, Ms. Doyle.
Mr. Chairman, I have 2 questions, if I may.
Please, Mr.
On the architectural plans, on the layout, well, it's not the same sheet that you were describing, but one of the layout sheets show a hatched area that represents about half of the building that says no work is proposed in that space. What does that area consist of? Why is nothing proposed?
Part of that has to do with the phasing, so you're going to hear more about that, but if, Mr. Oswald, if you want to talk about it, or we can wait and our architect's going to talk about it.
Okay, we'll get to that.
But yeah, he's coming.
This may be for the architect as well, but Mr. Oswald, you mentioned, or I don't know if you mentioned it, that this project would be implemented in 2 phases. Do you have a sense of what the timing or schedule might be from beginning to end?
Yes, so the interior fit out for this one, we'd like to complete by end of this year with commissioning qualification. And then ideally, we'd have another client that would need entire space, and then we can actually have the 3 cell shuttles that were outfitted in this first phase, and then the second phase would be the entire area that you see shaded, no work, would be further manufacturing of cell shuttles.
So do you have an idea of when you think, in terms of time, phase 1 would be completed and then versus phase 2, or phase 2 is sort of TBD?
With engineering, probably 7 to 9 months of engineering and probably at least another year construction, so we're probably talking about 2026.
For completion of phase
2.
Okay.
Thank you.
And if I may, does phase 1 include the construction of the pad for the delivery truck as well, no?
Correct, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Burr. Are there any members of the public that wish to comment on Mr. Oswald's testimony? Okay. Thank you, Ms. Coffey.
Thank you. So At this point, I think we're ready for our engineering testimony. Thank you, Mr. Oswald.
I'd like to thank the board. Thank you very much for hearing our application.
Thank you.
Okay, we need to get you sworn, please.
Yes, please.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're going to give in the course of this hearing will be the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Could you state and spell your name for the record, please?
John Cote, spelled C-O-T-E. I work for Langen Engineering and Environmental Services, located at 300 Kimball Drive in Parsippany, New Jersey.
Thank you.
Mr. Cote, could you please introduce yourself further to the board and the public and tell them about your experience and credentials?
Sure. So I'm a civil engineer, trained education from Stevens Institute of Technology. I've been a licensed engineer in New Jersey since 1991. I've prepared and performed testimony before multiple boards throughout the state. My license is in good standing.
We'd ask that Mr. Cote be accepted as a civil engineer.
Does the board have any questions or any concerns regarding Mr. Cote's experience? Please proceed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so Mr. Cote, can you please orient us a little bit to the site, where it's located, and what's around us?
Sure. The first drawing I'm going to put up is an aerial overview of the site. It's drawing VA 100.
And I think we need to mark this.
Call this one
correct?
A2.
A2?
A2.
And does it have a date on it?
It's dated last revised January 12th, 2023.
I'm sorry, which is this?
This is drawing VA 100. It's called the Overall Existing Conditions Plan. It's part of the bulk site plan set that was submitted.
Will you just give me the revised date one more time? I apologize.
Yeah, and date is January 12th, 2023.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay. So what this exhibit shows basically with the north arrow basically to the right of the drawing is the overall site, what's referred to as 95 Corporate Drive. The site itself is a 12.94 acre tract. It's located just off of Corporate Drive. If you were to come down off of Route 202, Route 206, you'd come to the right-hand side, and that leads into the overall complex. The complex itself consists of other life science R&D type facilities. This is consistent with what's going on in the overall campus track. The site itself borders on Route 202, Route 206 on the east side. It borders on Corporate Drive on the south side, and then the internal Corporate Drive roadway on the west, the south and southwest, and then a undeveloped portion of land on the west side. The north side has borders on the Bridgewater Manor development. So one of the things to point out on this drawing is you'll see a purple hatched area. The purple hatched area is the limit of our project work. It's basically located at the northeast corner of the building, and that portion of the building and that area is basically what we refer to almost as back of house. It's bordered by basically a large extent of wooded area of the property that fronts on 202, 206, and Corporate Drive, as well as wrapping around between where the portion of site development we're talking about and the Bridgewater Manor. Our area basically is confined to just from more or less the loading docks that are existing today to the east and southeast. What I'll do is I'll put up a next drawing here and go through the content of the plans that are proposed. So first, I'll go to a next drawing referred to as the overall site plan.
I'm going to
And
pause
this
you for
is-
just a second, Mr. Cote. This is a plan that was submitted as part of the application, unchanged?
That's correct. Yeah.
Mr. Peck, would you like us to mark it as an exhibit or?
No, if it was submitted with
Okay.
part of the application.
Okay, thank you.
So this plan shows the overall development and includes the zoning table for the project. And the reason I point this out is some of the items in terms of the variances we're talking about existing non-conforming that we're maintaining in this property are identified on this drawing. So if you're looking at the overall footprint and look to the east, you'll see the setback from the building to Route 202, 206 is identified as 173.9 feet, where 200 is required, and that's an existing nonconformance that we're maintaining. We're not building any building component closer to the principal building closer to Route 206, 209, 202, 206. The other item I'll point out here, and I'll get a little more detail when I get into the phasing of the plans, is the area where the emergency generator is proposed, which is an accessory building, is located 127.1 feet, and that accessory structure is outside of the 100-foot minimum setback. So we are compliant with the location of the emergency generator. We also have a transformer proposed in the phase 2, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. And that again is outside of the 100-foot front yard along Route 202, 206, and we're compliant with that location as well. So moving down to a blow-up of the site plan, this is the next drawing. It's CS 100. This is
part of the plan
part of the same plan set. And if I come off the plan set with a new exhibit, I'll identify that. So for the purpose of the drawings we're going to review here, they'll all be part of that package that was
So I'll
overall.
stop interrupting you.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
I understand. So again, CS 101 is the enlarged site plan. And what the enlarged site plan identifies is the overall development. It shows proposed modifications to development. It shows the removal of the 2 landscape islands that are located at the tail end of the parking lot area. The area where the tank storage is proposed is a concrete pad adjacent to the building. The 6-foot fence that was referred to in the earlier testimony that wraps around the tank pad, where a dumpster location would be proposed. And again, in terms of the phasing, I'll go through them and show what gets built in which phase. The 2 new loading docks that are proposed, as well as the drive aisle that supports the truck maneuvering to support the storage tank pad deliveries. So this proposed work overall, in the big picture for the purpose of the lot coverage, we're increasing the lot coverage by 0.4% overall. That 0.4% impervious is just located within this localized area. Some of the questions that were brought up by the professionals were asking about, would that cause any impacts relative to either stormwater, relative to the site development's infrastructure? That small amount of impervious will not impact the actual drainage structures. Just for an approximation, as an example, the amount of stormwater we're generating is less than 5% of the capacity of the pipe going downstream. So looking at that, I'll state that there's no impacts to the downstream stormwater system as a result of the improvements. Looking at the site in terms of how it's phased, I'm going to now refer to a new drawing. This is going to be marked as Exhibit A3. So A3 is a drawing entitled Phasing Exhibit. It's drawing EX01. It's dated November 20th, 2023. And what this drawing has on it is a breakout of the phased work, phase 1 and phase 2. To the comment made earlier about the truck turnaround pad being built in phase 1, and the answer is yes, to support the tank storage. So if I focus in on phase 1, it consists of removing the 2 landscape islands to allow for the truck turning maneuvers, putting in the truck drop-off bay adjacent to then the proposed storage facility for the tanks, and along with that, the curbing that would be adjusted for the layout to accommodate the maneuvering of the trucks. So phase 1 is limited to that area. Phase 2 then incorporates the new relocated dumpster and the 2 additional loading docks. Along with that, it includes drainage to tie into the existing drainage system. It includes the emergency generator and a transformer pad. Those areas consider the full build-out phase 2 for the interior, associated with the interior use of the facility. The loading docks, in this case, in the design, what we did was match up the existing condition loading docks with the larger doors that were referred to in the earlier testimony. The 2 loading docks are the 12.5 by 36 foot. And again, for the size trucks being used here, they're consistent with that particular dimension. And it allows for the maneuvering of the storage tank deliveries while those truck bays are occupied. So phase 2 includes all of these elements. And along with that, relative to the technical design, there's tree plantings I'll refer to on another drawing and other improvements that I can talk to. So I'm going to go back to the major site plan set, which is what we marked originally as A2, for drawings that are included in A2. I'm going to identify a drawing within there that's called the Truck Circulation Plan, CP 101. Again, this is per the set that's already been submitted. And the Truck Circulation Plan identifies the referred to truck earlier, the SU-30 vehicle, occupying the loading bay areas, the new proposed loading bay areas, their truck maneuver in and out of the bays, including then, additionally then, the tanker truck that provides deliveries for the storage tanks is also shown. And that truck utilizes basically the area of the lot where we're removing those landscape islands. That's the reason for the removal of landscape islands. You'll see the maneuvers require those areas to be open for the truck turnarounds. We also show the truck through multiple maneuvers, allowing it to use either of the existing loading docks to be able to allow the maneuver. And the tanker truck would locate itself adjacent to the tank storage and then allow for the connections for that. So the next drawing I'm going to bring up is now going to be outside of the set. It's going to be a revised drawing. This is going to be Exhibit A4, I believe.
A4.
And A4 is a revised version of CP 102, the Truck Circulation Plan. In this particular case, we've added then a modified fire truck turning maneuvers on this to incorporate a comment received through the technical review from the fire department for utilizing the truck specific to Bridgewater. So this incorporates the truck referred to in the review letter and shows the maneuver is capable within the confines of the redevelopment.
Mr. Cote, just for the record, it's a Green Knolls Fire Department Fire Ladder Truck 2018 Pierce Velocity.
Correct.
The truck.
That is correct. So the dimensions that depicted on the drawing match that particular specified truck, and the maneuvers are based upon that dimensional vehicle.
They can never buy a new one.
Pardon me?
They can never buy a new one.
Yeah, we do multiple fire trucks, so in this case, always welcome to accommodate the specifics that are in a ladder facility.
We appreciate that.
Okay. So the next drawing I'm going to bring up is back to the site plan set, and in the site plan set, I'm going to bring up the landscape plan. The landscape plan is LP 101, again, within the set that was submitted. And what's depicted on here is both the removal and the replacement of trees, and to speak earlier to the waiver we were requesting. So the trees that are being removed are in direct proximity to the tank storage and to the landscape islands that were being removed for the truck turning maneuvers, and one near where the emergency generator is proposed. So what we're doing in the proposed plan is planting 4 trees that are being proposed at the limits of the new development within the new island created by the area next to the emergency generator. The additional 8 trees, per the letter we received, the review letter, asked if the 8 trees could be planted on site or instead of, say, in lieu of, fee in lieu of. So within the proximity to the area that we're talking about, there's limited opportunity to plant the trees, and I'll illustrate that. We can look elsewhere on the site, and I'll propose that, and if the board would permit, we can coordinate that with your professional to look for viable options. But I just want to illustrate why we wouldn't put the trees, any additional trees where we're at. Not because we didn't want to, just because the area is already densely populated with trees. So this is a new exhibit. This will be exhibit, label it as A5. The drawing is entitled Site Photo Exhibit. And the drawing depicts 4 photographs of the perimeter tree line that runs around the site in the area where we're proposing our work. This drawing is dated November 20th, 2023.
Read my mind, thank you.
Catch me there. So the photo location plan has 4 photographs, basically all facing towards the areas of the adjacent properties that show, more or less what's between us and then let's say in this case, Bridgewater Manor is the adjacent property to the north. And one of the questions that was asked of me was, well, what type of vegetation is there? Is there a chance we could just put more plantings in there? And if I'll go through the photographs one at a time, but basically this shows the edge condition of the existing parking lot already has a dense packed vegetation. There's actually no additional slots, I'll call it, to put in trees. So photo 1 and then photo 2, looking down, there's a mix of evergreens and deciduous trees that make up that tree line. And you can see the density of the trees in the photographs, relative to that perimeter condition. So as we look and wrap around the parking lot area where we're working here on the site, and photo 3 continues down the same line, you see the density of the trees. And photo 4 looks more almost straight towards Route 202, 206. And again, you can see the density of trees in that perimeter. So what I would propose, if it works for the board, is, and I apologize for flipping back and forth, but I'd just like to go back to the site plan for a moment here. The site plan set the original drawing that I had up, which was the overview, the aerial, the overall existing condition drawing.
A2.
A2 drawing, yeah, part of Exhibit A2, and this is the original submission package as well. So this VA 100 drawing, you can see on the drawing from the aerial that the density of the tree line along the perimeter, everything from southeast and to the northeast corridor running up along the neighboring property, are pretty much filled in with all existing trees. There may be a few pockets in the back of the building where we could locate a couple of trees. And then additionally, between the fence line, the curb line and the property line, in between trees that are planted in current parking lot islands, we might be able to fit a few more in there. So if I can work with Mr. Burr or whoever at the township would be the right person, we could look for an opportunity to get those 8 trees in those other locations. And if we can't fit them viably, then we would look to pay a fee in lieu of for the tree fund.
Mr. Peck, we could make that a condition of approval.
Yep. Okay.
Thank you.
So then, looking at the overall site, the last few things to touch upon. With respect to parking, we're going to be removing 14 parking spaces as a result of the maneuvering I talked about earlier. I'll bring back the site plan for a moment here again, and I'm changing back to the drawing we looked at before, part of the set enlarged site plan, CS 101. So those 14 parking spaces are associated with the area I referred to earlier as the truck turnaround maneuvering area, and where we're putting in the new drive aisle for the tank to access for the delivery truck to access the tank storage area. So those 14 spaces being removed, we'll have 474 still remaining. We're required to have 398. So we in effect have 76 excess parking spaces associated with the finished development in the post.
So could you give those numbers again?
Sure. The
How
original.
many will be resulting?
Yeah.
How many you need?
So the existing is 488. We're removing 14 to get it to 474. And the required is 398.
Thank you.
Okay. And referring back to the earlier testimony about the largest shift being 175 employees, even if if everyone showed up at the same time, you'd still have excess parking at 350 compared to 398. So at this point, we don't see the 14 parking spaces being a detriment at all to the project or the use of the facility. So then, one of the items discussed earlier, brought up in the original introduction to the project, was regarding the steep slopes. So just to clarify, we're in an existing condition right now where the steep slopes, basically for the project, are not being impacted by this project. What we have a drawing that was submitted to the town, and I'll pull it up on the screen here. Again, this is a submitted drawing, but if you like, I can mark it. You just tell me if you want it to be a new exhibit or not.
Was it submitted colorized?
It was submitted colorized, just the way you see it on the screen.
If that's as is, then no need to mark it.
That's correct. And this drawing is referred to as existing slope-based net development area calculation. It's drawing CA 102 and dated back January 12, 2023. And what you see on this drawing is a depiction of different colors representing the different ranges of slopes that exist on the site. And the slopes themselves, per your ordinance, reduce the developable area calculation for the site. They basically get subtracted at a ratio from your overall lot area, what they consider to be developable, and that basically becomes the new bottom line for your percentage of lot coverage. Our proposed site has that increase of the impervious I referred to earlier, and that increase does not occur within any of the steep slope areas. We're not modifying or impacting any steep slopes. What it is a record of the original project being at the steep slope, existing condition being non-compliant. We're adding that 0.55% impervious to the development of the site relative to these steep slopes being subtracted. So not to be, I apologize if that's confusing, but more or less, it's again, only reason we're doing the same amount of impervious, we're not impacting any steep slopes, so it's not an impact to steep slopes on the site proper, if that's what somebody was asking in one of the questions in the review letter.
And Mr. Cote, similarly, I know you touched on this before, but you would not expect any impact to stormwater management or to the ability to safely grade the site or anything like that?
That's correct. Yeah, my earlier statements still stand. This, again, has no impacts to steep slopes. It's just it's the way your ordinance qualifies the developable portion of the land. So with respect to the overall, that's all of the different project drawings that I was looking to bring up. There's some comments by the engineer that I just want to touch on, just two other items. Sure. One was the lighting plan. To respond to the request was, we're positioning a light over the loading dock areas, and I'm going to bring up the lighting plan, again, within the original set of submitted drawings. This is LL101, the lighting plan. And just briefly, the light fixture that's proposed over the loading docks is positioned at 12 feet above the finished floor elevation. And what that does is it positions it just over the pad areas that are built around the loading dock door. So any lower, it'll be obstructed by the pads that the trucks back up against for a weather seal when they back into a loading dock area. So that's consistent. It's within a foot of the existing lights that are on the site today, next to the existing loading docks. So just for reference, it's consistent design with what's there today, and it allows for a safe operation of lighting at the facility just over the loading dock doors. So I believe that's the last comment relative to the plan set. And we would look to comply with the other comments that are on the engineer's report. There was a request in one of the comments, which is, I guess, a discretionary question about whether the excess coverage, the impervious we're creating, could be eliminated on the site, and that could be done by removing additional parking spaces, if that's, as a potential option. But it's not represented in our plan right now because this particular particular design doesn't impact the site.
Thank you, Mr. Cote. Does that complete your testimony for the moment?
Mr. Chairman, we also had a review memorandum from your fire department. I don't know if you'd like us to touch on that now or pause for questions.
I think we should pause for questions
Okay.
at this time. Yeah. With that being said, are there any members of the board with questions for Mr. Cote?
Yes. I see you have the emergency generator slab, 11 by 33 feet. That's pretty large. How big is your generator, and what's the fuel?
I can refer to the architect for that testimony. He's the one who sized the actual generator in terms of the capacity of it. And diesel would be the fuel. So yeah, the megawatt or the rating of it, the architect can speak to.
What I'm looking at is the noise.
Yeah, the actual generator has to comply with your noise ordinance. So in terms of the operations of it, they're bound by the same rules for noise generation, for noise attenuation by the facility. So it has to operate in that range both day and night.
Okay.
How often will the generator run? Will it run a maintenance a couple times a month?
So, yeah, there's typically a cycle, like a scheduled cycle. Most of the time they'll do that during the daytime, just because of to avoid any type of nuisances. But ultimately, again, even that operation during the daytime would have to comply with the noise ordinance. The state's, I believe, it matches your ordinance with respect to the allowable decibel levels.
So one area that I'm I'll say wrestling with in my mind, for the lack of a better term. We talked briefly about stormwater management, and I know there's been some testimony that feels the stormwater management system there is sufficient. I can't remember, I remember when I was a few years younger when this site was first built. And in fact, I think this building, if I'm not mistaken, was the data center for AT&T when they had, yeah, I see some people shaking their heads. So, obviously this was designed quite some time ago. And we have seen changes in storms in this area and more frequent 100-year storms and Ida and stuff. So I guess my question is, what kind of inspection or testing, if any, has been done on the existing underground stormwater management infrastructure to make sure that it's up to snuff?
Yeah, so built per the original plans, like you said at the time, the system that's out there right now is there's a dual pipe that leads from the loading dock. There's a 15-inch and an 18-inch that supports that. And what I was referring to earlier, the added impervious, if you think of the capacity of the pipe at 100%, we're adding 5% to that, to what's there today. Now, I haven't analyzed the pipes for, like, I'll call it a full-blown stormwater design. What I've looked at is its potential impact to the pipe and to the downstream. And from this point of view, in terms of a 12.94 acre site and looking at the 0.052 acre of impervious, that square footage or that acreage going into there is the actual original design, unless it was undersized at the time, it wouldn't have an impact on it, in my opinion.
I guess my question is, though, what's the condition of that pipe? Is that pipe, does that pipe need to be replaced? Is it sufficient for another 20 years?
Yeah, from the survey records, the pipe is clean. There's no debris in the pipe running from the manhole, from the inlet in the loading dock today to the exit pipes. And my observation looking through, I didn't see any buildup in the inlets, any type of additional debris along those lines. So it's actually, to your point, it's actually a good question. It actually is a very clean, free-flowing pipe today, which I guess is a compliment to the owner of maintaining it. Yeah, I didn't see any source of concern relative to the condition it was in when I observed through the manhole and the inlet.
Okay, it's just, obviously we look at stormwater management, I think, very different in this area after Ida. So I think, out of an abundance of caution, we want to make sure that it's sufficient. So I'll defer to Mr. Burr when it's his turn if he has further questions there. Thank you.
Thank you.
And as far as that stormwater management does go, were there any past issues documented or any remediations that took place throughout the years that you're aware of?
Nothing I've been made aware of.
Okay. And you wouldn't, by chance, happen to know how the general area fared during the Ida incident, for example?
No, I don't have record of that, but I haven't heard of any concerns. No one's illustrated any concerns or indicated any concerns to me of the area. Again, looking at it the way it's set up right now, the parking lot and everything the way it is, it's a clean setup in terms of what's out there, as opposed to, when I look at a site, if I think things are in poor maintenance, then that would raise my concern. And we would go and, camera lines to see, what's going on. But again, under my observations, the pipes were clean running through, and I was out there, actually, the photographs were during the rain. I went out there during a relatively heavy rainstorm, that's me personally liking to do that. But that's for me to get a sense of what's going on. And I see there's not ponding areas or anything of that nature in that area.
Where do those pipes go?
Pipes all run out and run to the northwest, and then they run out through adjacent to the Bridgewater Manor.
They go to the stream behind the manor.
Behind them, yes. Correct.
There's a stream that runs, I'll say, parallel to the driveway of the Bridgewater Manor. That's actually the downflow discharge of the dam from Sunset Lake.
Is that not Chambers Brook?
It might be. Yes, it is.
I had a question while we were talking about slopes. I took a drive down to the site this morning. I looked pretty close to it. And I couldn't help but notice how, like you said, that area is kind of like a backyard, a typical Bridgewater backyard. I drove back there, and I think there was some work being done. I did get an opportunity to see large equipment there, large trucks there, that would be synonymous with one of our hook and ladders. I think I saw a large, it looked like a forum cable type of thing there. But long story short, the slopes that were there are pretty dramatic, and it's not typical of to see a corporate complex like this with that type of slope and such little space there to accommodate for this type of parking. So it was just a general comment that I wanted to make when I did see that, but I'm glad I had a chance to see what a large truck looked like there, because the issue of safety kind of came to mind, especially when you're talking about 175 to 200, let's say, in one shift. And I think to tack on to Mr. Banga's earlier question about what a future warehouse use would look like, that's where I think a lot of our heads are at, as far as I know that's where mine is at when it comes to how much volume is going to take place at this site. Because when you do enter the corporate complex in general, it's your typical campus. There's little space for large truck type of activity to take place. So just general commentary, but I did want to make note of that truck that was there today was pretty large, a little longer than one of our hook and ladders, and took quite a bit to maneuver it to get out of there.
And that's the reason for the removal of those landscape islands on the plan, specifically because of that. We were asked if we could go without removing those, and I couldn't justify the turning maneuvers without it.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just to follow up on that, and potentially maybe for Mr. Oswald, I see that from one of the Fierce Pharma articles that the intent is that there's going to be 50 cell shuttle modules installed at this facility. What is the time frame on that?
I have to refer back to Mr. Oswald on that.
Mr.
Okay.
Chairman, is it helpful if we have Mr. Oswald just join us to answer the question now, or do you prefer that we?
I think we should bring him forward at this
Okay,
time.
great.
It also has some indication on the parking situation as well. I just wanted to know at the once the entire operation is fully functional, is that still the intent about 175, or are we anticipating many more than that? Many more employees than that?
Yeah, we're still looking at the 350 max employees, roughly about 175 to 200 per shift, shift 1, shift 2, supporting the 50 cell shuttles. And then that, basically when we designed phase 2, 50 cell shuttles was a maximum number of cell shuttles we can fit in the building. Potentially that might be 40, might be 45, but 50 is the full max of their capacity.
Okay. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Banga.
Just hang out for a minute, maybe. So we're done with questions.
Any other questions from our board?
I apologize, I do have one more. So back on A2, I think it was. That one. So I guess it would be on the west side of the building, well, the left hand. So there's a driveway that comes down along the building and then comes around to the south side there. But that doesn't go all the way around. Is that what?
My understanding is that was for executive parking under the prior use.
Gotcha.
That was the reason for that drive aisle.
So is that staying there? Or?
Yeah, we're not altering that area.
Okay. I guess the question is, if we're concerned about increasing coverage area, is that an opportunity to eliminate some of that coverage?
Right now, we're using it as basically our construction entrance.
Okay.
So, we're keeping that kind of open because as we phase this building out, phase 1, as you saw in our interior fit out, will be in development and we'll be using that facility. So we need that back area to basically do phase 2.
Okay. Thank you.
I'd like to hear from our professionals.
All right. So as I understand it, you, based upon our joint letter dated November 17th of 2023, you have agreed to number 5 regarding the tree deficiencies. You'll work with the municipal staff, and if you can't find accommodation for 8 trees, then you will post a contribution to the municipal tree fund?
Yes.
That's correct.
I understand it. Okay, and the next one, there is a requirement that dumpsters be made of the same material as the buildings to which they serve. I didn't notice that there was a note on the plan. Would you put a note on the plan to address that?
Yeah, the note indicates that the facade of the enclosure has to match the building.
Okay,
So that'll be utilizing the same type of materials that you see out there today.
And what, will the dumpster be seen from any public street?
No, it will not. We have over 140 feet of dense woods between us and the public right-of-way.
I saw that. I wasn't sure if that was the only dumpster.
Yes, that's the only dumpster.
Okay, that's it for me, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Doyle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Cote, my two questions really are piggybacking on Councilman Ring and Chairman Vecchio dealing with drainage. So when we talk about coverage, I think I heard you mention you have an increase of 0.4% coverage
Of
on this project?
0.4% relative to the, 0.4% is the coverage. It's 0.052 acres of coverage of increased impervious. Around 20,
To avoid me doing math,
about 2,600 square feet.
2,600 square feet increase?
Right.
And how do you get to that number? What is changing on the
Sure.
site that we're increasing the coverage?
When you look at the area that we're developing, the area adjacent to the building where there's a grass strip today is being proposed as a loading facility, where the area of both the tank storage and the generator, there's a concrete patio being replaced, but there's grass area elements in between there. So that's really where the lot coverage increases. It's the storage tank, generator, and a portion of the truck turnaround, and then further up where the loading dock cuts into the existing grass area adjacent to the building.
So it's a couple of areas.
Couple areas, and they all drain to that. Right now, that whole area drains to the inlet that's adjacent to the loading facilities.
Okay. So obviously, we're all sensitive to the drainage impacts. You've heard that. I'm sensitive to the relief being requested, and is there any way that we can avoid an extra variance? So for 2,600 square feet, have you, or would you be willing to look and see if there's some areas on site that could be reduced to kind of eliminate that variance and not have any increase runoff from this proposal? Is that possible?
Yeah, through the applicant.
I think as long as we agreed upon where it's at and how it might impact our business or how it might not impact our business, but we'd be looking, we looked
Yeah,
at
we wouldn't want to propose anything that impacts the proposal, but if we could get a net zero for the increase, that's a win for everybody.
So, Mr. Burr, we did look a little bit to try to figure out one potential solution. I think what we came up with was we could eliminate an additional 15 parking spaces because we are pretty well over parked, so we would still be certainly complying with the parking requirements, but that would bring us back to net zero. So if that's acceptable, that would be one way that we could accomplish it, and we would certainly be willing to do that.
Yeah, I would have no problem with that. Just looking at the layout, it seems like it would make a lot of sense to remove some parking on the far end of the parking lot.
Right.
Get a little more green space, may even allow you to put some of those landscape trees in that we had spoke about, and I think that's a better plan.
Yeah.
And
It's a win-win.
in terms of the existing drainage facilities, I think I heard testimony that the survey revealed that those drainage facilities were clean? Or did you actually?
I had an opportunity to look myself, yeah, in terms of if you go out and you'll see where the loading dock one is and the one that's receiving downstream, and there was no debris the days that I went and visited to look at.
As well as the outfall, or would you agree?
I didn't
with
walk to the very
inspection?
far outfall, I didn't take that final run, but looking at the upstream being the contributing component, seeing it clean, to me, that was a good sign.
As a condition of approval, would you be able to inspect that outfall just to make
Yeah.
sure the whole system is functioning properly?
Yeah, we can take a look at that and clarify if anything's there to be cleaned up for maintenance.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Burr.
I'm sorry, Mr. Burr, would we want them to work with you or Ms. Doyle regarding which parking spots, or is that?
I think that'd be great.
Satisfaction of the board engineer.
Okay.
I think that'd be great.
That works.
Before you yank him out, run it past.
No,
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. We want concurrence. We agree.
yep, that's acceptable to the applicant, certainly. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board? How about our members of the public? Any questions regarding this testimony? Please feel free.
For the record, Robert Albano, Papin Road, Bridgewater. One of my questions was addressed, and that is reducing the parking spaces which are beyond the required, and in addition, using some of that space to plant additional trees to reduce heat island effect. So I think that would be a nice solution and accomplish, since you are a California green company, make it green here. The other thing is, I believe, Councilman Ring, you said the outflow goes into Cuckold's Brook. Yes, it does. Near and dear to my heart, because Cuckold's Brook is in my backyard. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Albano.
Further upstream, though.
Further upstream.
Further upstream. He's on the other side of the lake.
I don't see any other members of the public with any questions. I'll close the public portion of the commentary. Okay, Ms. Coffey, any other?
Before I let Mr. Cote sit down, don't go. I just wanted to...
Not off the hook, sorry.
We did receive a memorandum from the Bureau of Fire Safety that I just wanted to touch on a couple of comments there quickly with Mr.
Yes.
Cote.
Sure.
So we've already talked about the turning radius for the specific truck that was referenced in that memorandum. There were also comments requesting a Knox box be installed. Mr. Cote, my understanding is there's already a Knox box on the site that it's proposed to remain, correct?
That is correct.
And there was another comment saying that the fire department connection shall not be blocked and shall be clearly marked, and of course, the applicant agrees with that comment as well.
I could add one more point of clarity. Just
Please.
one of the other discussion points was, from the engineer's letter was regarding the fire pump house. And the fire pump house, when on our original submission, was outside the building, and the questions I think were relative to that. When we resubmitted, the fire pump house is now being positioned inside the building, so the pump won't be out in the exterior. There'll be no exterior enclosure. So our site plans reflect that now. So that'll be under the architectural component of the site.
Thank you.
Just regarding the Knox box, I think we should also just, it's on the record, this building's going to be staffed 24/7, 365, so the need for, I mean, there's a Knox box there, but if it's truly staffed 24/7.
We may not need it, but if they want it, we're happy to continue to have it.
We appreciate that.
Yeah.
Any other questions before we proceed with our next witness? Anybody from the public? Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Cote. Next, we have Mr. Jostin. We'd ask that he join me and be sworn, please. I'm really not contagious. I just can't get over this cough. It's been like 6 weeks.
We're not judging.
Thank you.
Mr. Peck, would you swear him in?
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're going to give in the course of this hearing will be the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Could you state and spell your name for the record?
Eric Josten, ERIC-JOESTEN.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Jostin, could you please introduce yourself to the board and the public and tell them about your experience and qualifications?
Yes, I'm Eric Josten. I'm a principal with Ewing Cole, which is an architectural engineering design firm located in Philadelphia. I graduated from Penn State University with a Bachelor's of Architectural Engineering. I'm a licensed mechanical engineer in the state of New Jersey, and my license is in good standing.
And can you tell us a little bit about your experience in designing these type of life science facilities, please?
I've spent my entire career at Ewing Cole, going on 30 years now, and I've specialized in the design and planning for life science facilities, specifically CGMP manufacturing, such as this facility type.
I don't know if everybody knows what CGMP manufacturing is. Can you tell us, please?
The C is current, and GMP is good manufacturing practices.
Thank you. So we'd ask that Mr. Jostin be accepted as an expert in planning life science facility spaces.
Does the board have any objections to Mr. Justin's qualifications? Please proceed.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Jostin, can you please tell us about the architectural renderings and the anticipated floor plans for the building?
Yes. These are the same drawings that were submitted as part of the application. However, I did add some color for clarity for the
And
presentation.
if they've been altered in any way from what was submitted, then we'll mark them as an exhibit. So you're up to A6.
A6.
So then do I need to go each drawing with the?
So as we go to each new sheet, we'll need to give it its own number. So start, your first sheet is what?
First sheet is number AD as in David 1.1. It's a demolition site plan. And it's dated, latest revision, July 11th, 2023.
Prepared by you and Cole?
Prepared by you and Cole. And this sheet is really just intended to give us an overall orientation. This plan is oriented 180 degrees from the way that the civil drawings present the building. This is really just an architectural convenience for how we visualize the plan and when it's being laid out. So that's the reason why it's rotated. From a site orientation standpoint, the modified area in the loading dock area is to the upper left, and the colored shaded blue area is really the extent of the renovation inside the building as part of the Phase 1 plan. So I'll move on to the next exhibit, which is drawing number AD, as in David 2.1.0.
This is Exhibit A7.
It's named Demolition Plan Level 1 overall, and it's July 11th, 2023. And this drawing just gives a little bit more detail relative to the intended scope inside the facility and how it relates to the exterior work being done. The existing facility was a combination laboratory office layout. In the upper left-hand corner is a large open laboratory space that will be renovated and repurposed for new labs. The balance of the space is just open offices, which have a combination of just workstation cubicles and an open plan, as well as some enclosed private offices and conference rooms that will be removed and as part of the renovation. The existing receiving and loading dock area in the plan is intended to be repurposed as part of the new plan. And the extent of the renovation just includes some additional office area. So now moving into the new work proposed plan, this is going to be drawing number A 2.1.0. It's
Exhibit AD, or A8, excuse me.
That's not the same as A1?
It is the same as A1.
Thank you.
Thank you for catching that.
All right, so we're on A1.
All right, it's the level 1 overall. The portion that's highlighted in yellow is just to sort of highlight what is being considered the shipping, receiving, or the accessory warehouse function as it relates to the new plan. Again, these were the existing laboratory areas that are being converted and repurposed for their QC laboratory function. The warehouse area is being created in the upper left-hand corner, and that area is essentially for receiving incoming material to the facility, where it is then QC checked and logged in, and then distributed to the manufacturing space. In the upper far left corner, you heard reference to the cryopreservation component of the process. These are where those cryogenic freezers are being located. The reason that's important is because it's in close proximity to the liquid nitrogen bulk tanks, which are located out on the exterior of the building. The liquid nitrogen piping is, it's desirable to have that in close proximity to its use, just because the far distribution of liquid nitrogen starts to affect the performance of the material. Again, in the upper right-hand corner of the plan, this is where the manufacturing space will go. There's currently planned for 3 cell shuttles as part of Phase 1. The balance of the office area that was in this area is being cleared out for shell space. And that shell space is really being used as sort of, as part of the ultimate phasing plan for the full build-out to allow Solaris to start to increase the quantity of cell shuttles in a phased manner. In other words, it's not going to go from 3 cell shuttles on day 1 to 50 overnight. It's going to be in a stage sequence where cell shuttles will be added over a course of time.
And I'm sorry, I keep hearing that phrase. Is it cell?
Cell shuttles, yes,
Like a
C-E-L-L.
shuttle?
C-E-L-L, like cells
Yup,
in your
cell.
body, and then shuttle,
a shuttle bus.
S-H-U-T-T-L-E, correct?
Correct.
Got it.
Okay. And then relative to the rest of the facility that's hatched in this area, it's currently existing offices. It's going to remain in place as existing offices. Solaris is currently only intending to use the offices in the lower left-hand corner as to support their startup operation. But as part of the phase 2, this office area will ultimately be renovated, and I'll share that overall floor plan in just a moment. But the overall flow of the facility relative to people, we've spent a lot of time talking about the material coming in and going out, but the people come in from the front door. They enter through the facility. Then there's the locker rooms and gowning for the personnel who are entering into the clean production space. And then from there, they proceed into their work area within the clean rooms. So the personnel and the product flow are all separated. So moving to the overall floor plan of the facility. So this is a new exhibit.
Now we're at A8.
A.1.1.1-P2A. It's a level 1 reference plan is the name, and it's dated October 20th, 2023. It is not a final official drawing. It's preliminary because it has not received final approval from the Solaris. But we share it in this meeting to give an overall understanding of what the full build is so that there's no surprises. As you can see, the layout to the right side of the plan is what the facility would look like with 50 cell shuttles located over there. On the entire right side of the building will be their manufacturing production space. The media prep and support spaces would follow along this line. And then again, we talked about the front lower left-hand corner would be for their primary office. There's a break area and a cafe for just sort of like a grab and go as a break room for the manufacturing staff. But everything else in the facility that was installed in phase 1 is remaining as it was. The receiving and logistics area remains the same. The QC labs all remain the same. There's no additional renovation as part of that. And one of the main reasons for this is because once Solaris starts manufacturing in phase 1, they're not going to want to stop manufacturing in order to expand their operation. It's going to want to maintain the continuous operations as they're expanding. And now we want to talk about the exterior elevation of the building, which is another exhibit, drawing A3.1.3.
This is A9.
Okay, this is an elevation northeast, and it's dated July 11th, 2023.
That was actually in our packet.
It was in the package.
Yep.
And you're right, it was colored in the package, so there are no.
Leading me
Sorry.
astray.
This is an exact match, correct. Am I okay to continue?
Go ahead.
The facility is an existing marble tile facade. We're maintaining that existing facade throughout. The only areas where we're breaking in is we're breaking through the existing openings, which were glass windows, and expanding those openings to provide for the new loading dock doors. So that is an area that we're changing. And then in the elevation, we're showing representation of the new bulk tanks. The tank on the left is the liquid nitrogen, and the tank on the right is CO2. And we're depicting the fence, which will be a slatted, screened fence from a security enclosure perspective. The height of the existing building is 24 feet to the top of the parapet. We've got the existing mechanical equipment and exhaust fans on the roof are currently at approximately 34 feet. And at the time this drawing was prepared, we did not have final sizing on the height of the bulk tanks, but based on the most recent conversations with the gas supplier, they're going to be in the range of 30 to 33 feet. So they will be taller than the 24-foot height of the building, but lower than the existing height of the mechanical equipment on the roof.
That's all I was expecting from Mr. Jostin, but we're happy to have him respond to any questions the Board of the Professionals may have.
Thank you, Mr. Joseph.
There was a question about the fire pump. Do we want
Question
to,
about the generator size.
the generator size? It's going to be a 2.5 megawatt generator, 2,500 kW.
It'd be like a 12-cylinder engine.
It's big.
That's
Like
design.
a diesel locomotive.
Diesel fuel under with the integral storage. It would be in a sound attenuated enclosure. It would be like a factory fabricated enclosure with a generator built inside of it.
Referring to your demolition plan, how old is the building anyway?
The age of the
80s.
building. I'm not sure when that AT&T data center was.
83?
I'm going to repeat it for the sake of the recording. The building we think was built in 1983.
Regarding the demolition, is there any chance of running across asbestos, insulation, floor tiles, lead paint, all that good stuff? 1983, you're on the verge there with the asbestos
The
insulation.
facility underwent some major renovations when AT&T moved out, and I think the current
Well, the user before us was Allergan.
right. But I think as part of those renovations, I would like to think that the landlord has all the asbestos remediation, or if there were any, those reports would be available. But I have not seen them.
Sometimes when you open the wall up, voila, there it is.
I mean, certainly to the extent that anything was discovered, it would of course be handled in accordance with all the state and federal requirements related to contaminated materials.
Ms. Coffey, I don't know if the gentleman behind you, he's kind of,
Come help. I can't see him. Guys, yeah. All right, so Mr. Oswald's back.
So in relative terms to your question about being a deemed a clean site, so we have Turner Construction, which is our CM managing the construction of the facility, that is deemed a clean site as we went through the inspection process of performing that demolition. So there was no asbestos, no lead paint, nothing that would be considered hazardous. And to the point, there was, in 1983, it was AT&T. It did go over some renovations in 1990, 1985, so it was kind of pieced together a little bit. But as stated, it was not, no asbestos or anything. It was deemed a clean site.
Well, I have.
Thank you, Mr. McGora. Any other questions? Don't believe I have any questions at this time.
No.
Ms. Doyle? Mr. Burr?
There's two existing loading doors that we heard previously are not being used because they're undersized? Or that was the reason why the 2 new doors are being proposed? Are the 2 existing ones to remain, such that you'll have 4 total?
Yes,
And will they be used as part of the Phase 1, or
yes,
they will be?
yes.
Okay. And then the front building entrance that you mentioned would be used by employees. Any improvements necessary at that point of the building, or is everything okay as is? ADA accessible, there's nothing being...
Everything's ADA accessible. We are doing some refresh improvements on the interior finish side,
Okay.
but more cosmetic.
Exterior-wise,
Exterior-wise,
remains as is.
correct.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Burr. Any questions from our members of the public? Okay, that'll close the public portion of that commentary. Ms. Coffey, I do believe you said you did have one more.
One more.
witness for us,
So
yeah.
thank you, gentlemen. So our last witness is Matthew Welch from Langen, and he is our planner. So I'll have Mr. Welch please join me. Okay, and I'd ask that Mr. Welch please be sworn.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're going to give in the course of this hearing will be the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Could you state and spell your name for the record, please?
Sure, it's Matthew Welch, W-E-L-C-H. I'm a senior project manager with Langen Engineering and Environmental Services, located at 300 Kimball Drive in Parsippany.
Thank you, Mr. Welch. Can you please tell the board and its professionals and the public about your experience and credentials?
Certainly. So as some background, I received my Bachelor of Science in the field of Civil Engineering from Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. I'm a licensed professional planner in the state of New Jersey with over 18 years' experience working on land development projects. As some background, although my testimony this evening is only in planning, I'm also a licensed professional engineer and a professional transportation operations engineer. In preparation for this hearing, I've reviewed the application, the site plans, the consultant's reports, visited the site, as well as reviewed the 2022 Master Plan Reexamination Report and the applicable zoning ordinances.
So I'm going to pause you. We'd ask that Mr. Welch be accepted as an expert in professional planning, please.
Does the board have any objections to Mr. Welch's qualifications? Please proceed.
Thank you. So, Mr. Welch, I think we have successfully eliminated 2 of the deviations that had been part of the application. We've eliminated the steep slope issue by virtue of the applicant's agreement to coordinate with the board's engineer to remove, we think, about 15 parking spaces, to regain some green space to bring us back into equilibrium with regard to compliance with the steep slope requirements. And we have also, that also takes care of the tree replacement issue as well. We'll be able to coordinate with the board professionals to find a location to plant those trees or make a payment if we are not able to find a location. So I think at this point, we are down to the size of the proposed loading berths. And then we have the existing nonconformity, which is not changing with regard to the building setback. Can you please talk about those 2 deviations and explain to us the proofs supporting the applicant's request for relief?
Certainly. So I think there's actually 2 existing nonconformities that are being maintained. Both the lot coverage, which is existing 68.43%. We will not be increasing because we will be offsetting the increase in impervious with a reduction in parking stalls, as well as the minimum building setback to the state highway. 200 feet is required, 173.9 feet is existing, and we're not looking to move the building as part of this application.
You are correct.
So as my colleagues have testified to, really the only variance we have is the minimum loading dock dimensions. 12 feet by 50 feet is required, 12.5 feet by 36 feet is proposed for the 2 new loading docks. As was testified to, these loading docks are really, the 12-foot by 55-foot dimension, that's really meant for large tractor trailers. And that's really not what's going to be using these loading docks on a daily basis. It's going to be vans, box trucks, just given the nature of the product at this facility. So the loading dock size proposed is appropriate for the use, and also that 40-foot the 36-foot depth is consistent with the other existing loading docks on the property. So in terms of just the zoning criteria, in terms of advances, purposes of zoning, purpose G, providing sufficient space and appropriate locations for a variety of uses. This variance relief does allow for the effective continual use of this building. Office use is on decline, so I think the particular use that's going to be utilized in this building is definitely an asset, and having these loading docks will allow them to continue to operate here. And then purpose H, encouraging the location design of transportation routes, which will promote in the free flow of traffic while discouraging the location of such facilities and routes which result in congestion or blight. Again, the variance relief does allow for sufficient truck turn maneuvering in an area that is a completely back of house area, completely screened from public view, so no detriment to visibility from the public. Just some of the negative criteria. There's really no substantial impact on the public good, as the dock size will not cause any issues with deliveries and is appropriate size for the existing users, and really no impact on the zone plan. This is a permitted use in the SCD district, and having these loading docks will allow it to operate in this location. That's essentially my testimony this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Welch. Happy to respond to any questions that there might be.
Thank you, Mr. Welch. Any questions from our board?
Just one question with Mr. Chairman, if I may. With regards to the full, with the full 50, once that's all, said and done, what is the time frame expected for that full?
So I think Mr. Oswald touched on it before, but I'm going to let him repeat it to make sure that we say it right.
We're looking about 2026.
2026, okay. And then with regards to truck traffic, they are smaller trucks, they're not like the WB67s that, typical larger warehouses will accommodate. What is the expected traffic as it relates to those smaller vehicles?
So I think it was testified less than 5 deliveries per day. So really not a number that's going to have any significant impact on the adjacent roadway operations. And probably honestly typical to typical FedEx, UPS deliveries that you would have of a office use of a similar size. So in terms of, again, I don't have any records of historical operations, but I don't think you're going to have any significant differences. And in fact, this use compared to an office use is going to have significantly less employees. So, I haven't done a full traffic study, but with my traffic background, definitely probably a lower traffic impact than a similarly sized office use.
Thank you, Mr. Banga. Any other questions? I mentioned earlier, or did ask earlier, if there was going to be security personnel on site, and there should be employees roughly 24/7.
Yes, that's correct, Mr. Chairman.
And just for the board's knowledge, it doesn't really apply to the application. What's the level of occupancy at the moment with the greater tract?
I'm going to see, Mr. Oswald, do you happen to know?
So pretty much it's myself and the construction staff at this point. We have to do significant hiring Q1 all the way up to 2026. So it's very little Solaris employees at this time.
Very good. Any questions from our board professionals?
A comment, not specifically on Mr. Welch's testimony, but we were talking about the stormwater management and the investigation of the pipes and stuff. Just something to keep in mind when you're looking at all that, for whatever it's worth. I'm not the engineer, but I was looking at Google Maps when we were talking about the name of the Chambers Brook. It is actually just on the other side of Chambers Brook. You may be familiar with, about a year ago, there was a sinkhole that developed off of 287 onto 78. And that's like a stone's throw from here. So I just, when you're looking at that, I want you to be aware, if you're not familiar with that incident, that kind of popped up out of the blue. So I think it's important to factor that in.
Appreciate it.
Any questions from our members of the public? Okay, Ms. Coffey, I think that wraps up with your testimony.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Are there any general public comments? Hearing none, seeing none. Board Attorney, Mr. Peck, have we satisfied all conditions?
Well, other than the generally applicable conditions that go to all applicants, the conditions I have are that the applicant will work with the board's professionals regarding the selection and location of the 8 trees to be replaced, and if locations are not viable, they'll pay the proportionate sum into the township's tree fund. The next is that they will eliminate 15 additional parking spaces to get to a net zero impervious increase, so as to eliminate the need for a variance, and that would be to the satisfaction of the board engineer. And the final, I believe the final condition was that the applicant will inspect and confirm that the stormwater outfall is clean and free from debris, and will transmit those results to the board engineer.
I think that's clean, free of debris, and serviceable.
And operable.
Yes.
Yeah. And operable. And that was all that I had. I don't know if I missed one or two.
That's what I had.
Okay.
Ms. Doyle, have we satisfied all the questions from your report?
Yes, there was one about putting, in the event, I don't think it's going to be applicable, but in the event that there is a light source that is intrusive, that they will shield the light source should the township engineer view it as necessary, and that's in the report. That's in our report.
Will that be condition number 4 there?
I'll add that as a condition. So if light is deemed by the engineer to be intrusive, applicant will take mitigating shielding measures.
Yes, absolutely.
Mr. Burr, any other commentary?
Mr. Chairman.
Any closing comments?
I think we're all on the same page in terms of what the application is. So with preliminary and final site plan, the variance relief is for the size of the loading berths, and then the 2 existing non-conforming conditions which are to remain, which is the setback from the highway and the steep slope coverage requirement. And I think that's it. We really appreciate everybody's time and thoughtfulness considering the application.
Thank you, Ms. Coffey. This time, I'd like to close that portion of the application. I'd like to open up to the board for deliberations. Mr. Wang.
Thank you. Yeah, I think the application is for the core of the business, and the only concern before this meeting from me is the size of the loading base. But I visit the site this afternoon, and also I know it's almost hiding in the backyard. With all this design, I'm supporting this application. Thank you.
Mr. Magura.
I think the requested variances are reasonable. Also, we do have that big buffer of the trees around that area, so I would endorse the application.
Mr. Magura. Ms. Chartowitz.
I thank you for your presentation. I think it was very well communicated and really answered a lot of our questions before we had to ask them. So I appreciate that. With regards to the application, all of the conditions being satisfied, I would be in support of it.
Mr. Banga.
Yeah, echoing the sentiment from my fellow colleagues, appreciate the testimony from the professionals. I think it was very well communicated, as Mr. Ardowich has mentioned. Also grateful for the net zero impact. I think that's really commendable to keep the green in mind. I look forward to the growth of the Solaris organization and the Bridgewater community.
Ms. Sarah?
Hopefully you can hear me. I agree with everything that everybody said before me. I mean, I think I actually like the application. It really is a very tucked back building. You can't see it really from the road. I took a drive back there as well, and it was not easy to even locate. But I think that, you know, again, with all of the non-conforming pieces that we've talked through, I think that, you know, if we can adhere to all of those, I'm supportive of the application.
Councilman Ring?
Thank you to the applicant and all their professionals for their willingness to, I think, work with this board. The fact that, you know, we came in and you were looking for relief that we've eliminated, I think demonstrates a good partnership, and I hope is the beginning of a long and successful business for Solaris in Bridgewater. I think, you know, what's being asked for here is relatively insignificant as far as what the benefits of this facility is, not only to Bridgewater, but to cancer patients around the country. So it has my support. Thank you.
I also do support, and thank you very much for the clarity and the cogency of the entire delivery this evening from your witnesses, very much so. I think a lot of us came in here, again, myself, with this question of, is this going to be warehousing? The term warehouse on everybody's mind, and I think this evening you've gone above and beyond to explain to us that this is not necessarily a warehouse. This is definitely is part of a proxy use of what's being produced. So thank you very much going over that for us. I think the board appreciates that as well. I also do support the variance use in this case. And once again, I'd like to echo everybody else's sentiments. Welcome to Bridgewater. We look forward to the community's, essentially you serving the community with your product. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Peck, would you be able to state a motion?
Yeah, the motion would be to grant the requested site plan approval as well as the bulk variance relief, subject to the conditions stated.
Would you like to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
That's Mr. Banga,
I'll second.
and that's Ms. Zarrow. Could I have a roll call, please? Yes.
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 Thank you very much. We really appreciate your consideration, and we're looking forward to really getting started. So thank you, and happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you,
as
you
well.
too.
Thank you, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh. Pardon me? We do have the exhibits on board. Would you like us to pull them up for you?
Yes. It's,
We'll coordinate.
type of things you want in town. Absolutely.
It's not doing good, but doing the Lord's work.
I was reading it.
Yes, we have. Ms. Probst is referring to the VOTEC, Somerset VOTEC, the cursory review that was, that took place here last month. Anybody have any comments regarding the Somerset VOTEC? I think we're good, Nancy. Thank you very much. I don't believe there's any other business.
What's our I know we're coming into December, and so none in December. Okay.
Do we have an open date of 12/5, if I remember from last time? Okay. Very good. We don't have any other board business, so at this time, yes.
If I may, sorry. So,
Sure.
no,
We're
just
here.
two things, first of all. So if we're not having a meeting in December, I think it's appropriate to thank Scarlett for her years of service as a planner here. I think everyone knows she's retiring at the end of the year, so she'll be around for another month, but this is our last meeting she will be at, so I will say thank you for everything. I know when I joined the planning board 2 years ago, Scarlett was a tremendous help for me in getting acclimated and learning a lot, so I greatly appreciate that. The other thing is, with no meeting in December, I can tell you that come January, you will have a new council person sitting here. I don't know who that will be yet, but I know it will not be myself after 2 years. So I just thank each and every one of you for what you do for Bridgewater and serving here. It's greatly appreciated. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Ring. And Scarlett, thank you as well. I just joined this board 4 or 5 years ago myself, not exactly sure what I was getting into.
Do you know yet?
I have an idea. But I specifically thank you, Scarlett, for giving me the motivation to continue.
Thank you.
I believe Bridgewater has your signature.
And we will always have you in the back of our mind when we're asking about design, landscaping, trees. Yes.
Whoever replaces you has big shoes to fill.
Understatement of the year.
Yep.
Absolutely. With that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
You're looking at me, I'll make a motion,
I'm always
sure.
looking at you, but that's Councilman Ring in a second.
I'll second.
And that's Ms. Chartowitz. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much, everyone.
And happy holidays.
And,
We're not going to be meeting.
yes,